What if I told you you can run your own AI agent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on a cloud server for absolutely $0? That's not clickbait. That's Oracle's free tier and Hermes agent running on top of it. And yeah, you can actually get that working. If you've looked at other VPS setup tutorials and thought this is too complicated, well, this one's for you because I'll even show you a tool that sets a visual interface on top of all of this so you can use your browser to interact with your agent and your VPS setup. This is a full walkthrough, so I'm not going to skip any steps. I'll show you everything from setting up the account to setting up your computer, setting up the VPS, the networks, the agent. And the best part, it's not going to cost you anything. By the end of it, you're going to have your own personal AI agent running on the cloud that you can talk through Telegram or any of the other platforms that are supported. Okay, let's get started. So Oracle Cloud's free tier is a really good resource because you can come on this page here and look at all the always free available resources. And yes, we can set up our VPS, but there's also a ton of other perks here, like 200 gigabytes of block volume storage. That's a pretty good deal. And you can also check the docs to see what's actually available and covered under these free resources. And to get started, you can just click Start for Free. It's going to get you to set up your account. You can select your billing country. And this is important because you are going to input your credit card details and it's going to do a $1 charge and then reverse it just to verify your card. You won't really be charged anything else unless you use something that's outside the free tier. Go ahead and do that. I've already done this. It's fairly straightforward. On the next page, it's going to ask you for your address, your card, your phone number, and then once it verifies, it's going to spin up an account. While you're setting it up, it is going to ask you to select a region. I selected the one that's closest to me, but if you're in doubt, you can go ahead and select the Ashburn region. Now, sometimes the capacity depends on the region as well, so you might not be able to spin up a service, but I'll show you how to get around that later in the video. And then when you're finished, you can go ahead and sign in. It's going to ask you for your cloud account name. That's something that you've set up during the sign up. So here, there's two things that we want to do. One, we want to spin up our VPS. And two, we want to create a network to access the VPS. You can go into the navigation menu here, go to Compute, and then select Instances. Here, let's go ahead and create a new instance. And you can name this anything you like. Here you can select which region you want. I'm just going to select the default. The really important thing here is the image and shape. The image is basically what operating system you want to install on your VPS. And so we're going to change this from Oracle to Ubuntu. You can select anything else you like, but Ubuntu is free to use. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to select the minimal Ubuntu 24 architecture 64. So let's select that image. So because I selected Art64, I can use Ampere instances. And as you can see with Ampere, you get a total of 4 instances that you can create for free with a combined 4 CPUs and 24 gigabytes of memory. For my case, I'm going to try and split that up into 2 so that I can have 2 different machines on here with a decent capacity. So let's go ahead and change that shape. And here you can see that Ampere is selected for me. If you want AMD, you can use AMD machines here as well. Just know that if you use AMD, you can only have 2 free VM instances. And if you use the Ampere instances, you can actually create up to 4 compute instances. So you can have 4 different servers running for your tasks. I do want the Ampere. And then here, if I click into it, I can set how many CPUs and how much memory. So I'm going to use up half of it by giving it 2 CPUs and 12 gigabytes of memory. And that way, there's a decent amount of resources in here. And say select shape. Okay, so now you can see I have a 2 CPU, 12 gigabyte machine with 2 gigabytes of network bandwidth available. Leave everything else as default. Okay, go through next. And then I'm just going to keep the default security options. Now it's going to ask you for the networking details. Because this is a new account, I don't have any network, so I'm going to create a new network. Everything else I'm going to leave default, but here you'll see that there's an option for public IP4 addresses, and I'm not able to select that, but don't worry about that. We're going to come back later and fix it. Then it's going to ask you for SSH keys. SSH is a way to securely log in to your remote VPS, and it's going to be really important to download both the private and the public key. So go ahead and do that. Click Next. Boot volume. I am going to specify a custom boot volume size. That's because you can see that you can get a total of 200 gigabytes for free. So again, because I'm creating 2 machines, I'm going to split that up. So let's go ahead and select 100. Everything else, I'm just going to leave as default. Go to Next. Okay, and now here it's going to show me all of the selections I created, and I'm going to go ahead and select Create. Ooh, here's the problem. The problem with Oracle free tier is that you need to spam the create a few times. Once it has capacity available, you should be able to create it. Now, there's 2 ways around that. So I'll show you the first way, and then we'll also do the second way. The first is to spam this create button, and I found a script on Reddit here that you can use. So in Chrome, you can go into JavaScript console, and then here where it says top, go ahead and select the sandbox for Oracle, and I'll paste the script in. Chances are you might need to type in allow pasting. The script tries to press create every 30 seconds. So if I hit enter, and here you can see that it clicked create, but it wasn't able to do it. And so 30 seconds later, it's going to go ahead and try to click create again. So you can leave the script running and see if that works for you. The second surefire way is to upgrade your account. So the second way, go into your menu, go to billing and cost management, go into upgrade and manage payment. So this page should typically let me upgrade, but I've just created this account, so it's still provisioning. It might take a while before this is available. For me, it took about half an hour. And here you can see that my plan type is free tier. I'm going to go ahead and add a payment method before I can upgrade my account to pay-as-you-go. And then you can go ahead and fill in your details here. And now I can select upgrade my account to pay-as-you-go. Essentially what this does is it can charge the credit card on file for any usage that you go beyond your always free. So go ahead and click upgrade your account. Your upgrade is in progress. Just to make sure you don't actually go over the cost, you can see that it actually lets you estimate the cost here with 2 CPUs, 12 gigabytes of RAM, include free tier, and then it's 100 gigabytes. And if you look here, the estimated cost is $0. So we're safe. So while that's trying to upgrade, if I come back to my first page here where I ran the script, and here you can see that while I was doing that, it went ahead and tried to click that. And the cool thing about this script is it's actually trying all 3 different regions, just in case there's availability. My script actually came in and tried to create an instance before my account even got upgraded from a free to a pay-as-you-go, but it failed. So the script is useful. Now I wonder if my account actually went through, so we can try to look at the billing. Okay, so I am on a pay-as-you-go account now. For me, that pay-as-you-go process took maybe 30 minutes of waiting before it actually went and let me do it. So the whole process after you've signed up for a pay-as-you-go account. So first we're going to get around this networking thing. So go into the menu here, go to networking, and then just go to the overview tab. We're going to create a virtual network with internet connectivity. So let's start that. And once you start that wizard, you just need to type in the name here and just leave everything as default. And then at the bottom right here, you can just select next. I'm going to create it. It's going to go through and do all these steps, and then you can view it. And there you go. It says available. Great. So our network is set up. Now let's go ahead and set up our machine. So we're going to go back to compute, instances. Okay, so I'm going to create an instance, and we're going to do the same thing. Let's change this to Ubuntu. And again, I'm using ARC64 so that I can use the Ampere processors. I'm going to change the shape of my machine, and we're going to use the Ampere processors. and we're going to make it 2 CPUs, 12 gigs of RAM. Click through. So now we're in step 3, networking. Here we're going to select an existing network and then just select the network that you just created. And here now you can see this is enabled, whereas before it wasn't. This is the public IPv4 address that we're going to need to connect to the machine. Okay, and then I'm going to download the SSH keys. Every time you do this, you do have to download the keys again, and this is really important. If you don't download the keys, you won't be able to log into your machine, so download the keys. We're going to specify a 100 gigabyte boot volume and verify all my information. Okay, and let's go ahead and create. Okay, and this time it went right into it without any errors. And now you can see that it succeeded. So again, we can see that I'm in my instance details here, so I can just go into the details. And at the top here, you can go ahead and actually start the machine. Now that that's done, we can see we have our machine ready here. There's 2 CPUs, 12 gigs of RAM, and here's the public IP address that we're going to need to connect to it. For whatever reason, if you weren't able to sign up for Oracle for the free stuff, then yes, VPS can be expensive. Like, it can cost you anywhere from $6 to $30 a month, but I have linked Racknerd down in the description. If you get their VPS, you can just try to order anything here and then go into the store and go into special promos. They have promos always running for $36 a year, which works out to $3 a month. For the price of a coffee, you can have your own server with 2 CPUs and 2 gigs of RAM and 35 gigs of storage, which is a great starter server. And once you sign up, you'll get an access link with the same SSH stuff, and you can follow the same steps starting from the terminal to installing Coolify to having your own Hermes up and running for $3 a month. Pretty good deal. So the next step is to connect to this. And initially we're going to do this using the command line, but I will show you how to set up a web interface so that if you're not comfortable with writing commands, then you can just use the browser. So the way to connect to this is to use those SSH keys that we downloaded before. A good practice now is to go ahead and rename these and also back these up. So I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to log into my server. And the way to do that is to use SSH. And we're going to use the key. We don't have a password. -I. Take your key, not the public file, but the key itself. And then you can drag and drop it into the command line. And then we're going to log into the server. Because we installed Ubuntu, the username we're going to use is Ubuntu at our IP address, which you can get from this console. Okay, it's going to ask you if you want to save this fingerprint. I'm going to save it. And you're going to run into an error. Because this is a security thing, the permission for this file is to open. Let's change the permissions on this file by first running chmod and then dragging and dropping the file again. Okay, and now that is done, let's try logging in using the SSH command. And there, I'm logged into my server. Now, we're not logged in as root here, but if you do want to log in as root, you can go sudo su, and then that will log you in as the root user. But let's stay out of that. So the commands that we want to run now that this is a fresh install is to just make sure our system's updated. And the way to do that is to run sudo apt update and then sudo apt upgrade. And we're just going to say yes. And that's going to go through and update your system for you. After that, we need to have some kind of a firewall. So we're just going to install that. Sudo apt install ufw, and then just wait for that to install. Before we turn on this firewall, let's make sure we don't lock ourselves out. So we're just going to run sudo ufw allow open SSH. We're also going to allow internet access and SSL. To do that, we're going to say sudo ufw allow 80. Sudo ufw allow 443. Let's turn on the firewall. And it may disrupt our existing session, so let's go ahead and say yes. Make sure you've run this before, otherwise you could get locked out and might need to spin up a whole new machine. Firewall is active and enabled on system startup. Okay, and we can also just check the status. Open SSH, ports 80 and port 443 are open. So we already have our server, we can connect to it, we can run anything we want on here. So let's go ahead and install Hermes. Now there's a couple of different ways to do this. We can install it directly using this command here, which means it's going to install on the machine itself, or you can install it in a container, which means that it's going to be sandboxed a little bit, but also going to be a lot easier to manage. And that way, if you want to use this server for other things, install other applications, you can also do that. But before we go ahead and install Hermes, we're going to actually install one more thing on here that's going to make it a lot easier to manage, so that we won't have to come into this terminal, so that we won't have to type in manual commands. It's just going to give us a bit of a user interface on top of our server. And we're going to use Coolify for this. Coolify is a great way to get around all these other expensive hosts, and they also give you a nice UI, and it's open source, so it's just going to make your server a whole lot easier to manage. And there's 20,000 plus GitHub stars, so let's go ahead and install it. There's a simple curl command, so we're just going to go ahead and run it. You can see that it's going to go ahead and install everything for you, so we're just going to let that finish. And once that's finished installing, it'll give you a URL that you can access it with. So I'm going to open that in my browser and see if it worked. Oh, no, never mind. Site cannot be reached. So we allowed the firewall on our machine, but Oracle has its own networking, and you have to make sure you allow traffic coming in as well. So to enable that, go to networking, virtual cloud networks, and then here, open your network, go to security, and here you'll see there's a couple of different security lists. So we're just going to go into the default security list, look at the rules, and then here you can see that it only allows port 22, which is the SSH, which is why we were able to log in. So we're going to need to add a couple more rules. So let's add a rule. So here you have to type in a range of IP addresses. You can just go ahead and type in 0.0.0.0, and in the destination port here, you can go ahead and type in 80 for HTTP. And we're going to add another rule for port 443 for HTTPS, and then again, the same IP addresses. Lastly, if we look at the port that this is running on, this is on 8000, so we're also going to add that. Description here, I'm going to write Coolify so that this reminds me if I look at it in the future. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and click Add Ingress in the bottom right here. In terms of egress rules, this is for outbound traffic, and we don't need to change anything here because it actually allows all traffic for all ports. Now we've allowed web traffic as well as access to the Coolify port. So let's go ahead and run that one more time. Perfect. So here we have the setup window. Here you can set up your name, email, password. I'll just do this real quick. Once you do that, you'll go through some setup steps here. The server type, this is going to run on this machine. We can go ahead and create our first project. We need to add resources to it. Then it's still giving me a warning here that it cannot connect to the real-time service, and it tells me to make sure I have the required ports open. Yes, we opened these guys, but we also need to open 6001 and 6002. So let's just quickly do that. So we're going to add another ingress rule. This time the destination port range is going to be 6001 and 6002. Okay, and that warning just went away by itself, so that's great. Now that we've resolved that error, here you can see that it gives you a whole range of different options for deploying your applications. You can deploy your own applications, or you can deploy Docker images. There's also a whole range of pre-built services that you can deploy, things like WordPress or SyncThing or Supabase, really just whatever you need to run on your server. So this is why I'm showing you this way instead of just copy pasting the command from Hermes into terminal. So to install Hermes, we're going to use something called Docker Compose. And to find that, we can just go to the Hermes documentation and search for Docker And here there is an example of a Docker Compose. So you can copy paste this and then click on Docker Compose empty and paste that in here. So essentially this will get the latest Hermes image and then run it, sets the ports for Hermes, and then sets some limits. Also, there's some API keys here that you can paste in, or you can do that in Hermes itself. Once that's saved, let's go ahead and give it a name. And then in Coolify, you can also define environment variables here. So for example, essentially what we pasted into the compose file, it gets copied over here. And then I'm just going to save it. Let's go ahead and click deploy. So that took a couple of minutes, but now you can see that it's done creating the Docker network and it's starting. So let's close out of that. Here you can look at the logs for what we just started. Gateway was starting. How do we connect to it now? Well, this is where Coolify helps, because we can just go to the terminal here, select the Hermes container, and here we can run Hermes setup. Now, this won't actually run. Basically, it couldn't find the Hermes command, and so we have to add that to the path variables, but we also want to make sure it persists through every run. So instead of just adding it to the terminal, we're actually going to modify our compose file. So to do that, let's go back into our project, go into the services, and then edit compose file. And under environment here, I'm just going to add some path variables so that we fix that in the compose. Essentially, this tells it where to find that Hermes command. Save it, save the stack, and restart. Okay, now if we go into terminal, select the Hermes container, and here now if I type in Hermes setup, great, it works. We're just going to do a quick setup here, and I'm going to set this up using OpenCode. OpenCode actually has some free AI models, and if you want to learn how to use that, I have a different video. It's linked in the description. Here, I'm just going to enter my API key. You can paste it in. It won't actually show up here, and it's saved. Save the default base URL, and here you can see it found some models. I'm just going to select deepseek/free. It's going to tell you the terminal backend. I'm just going to keep current, which is local. It's going to run on this machine, and when it says this machine, it means the container. Okay, we're going to set up messaging with Telegram. It's going to tell you to select which platform. Let's just go ahead and type in one, and enter. And then in Telegram, you can just message bot father with new bot. It's going to ask you for a name and make sure that username is unique. So I'm just going to call mine Hermano. And then once you have that, it's going to give you an access token. Go ahead and copy that and then paste it. Telegram bot is saved. You can also restrict who can message that bot, which is a good idea. And to do that, you can message user info bot, and then it will reply with your user ID. Okay, so I got my user ID from the user info bot, and then I'm just going to paste that in here. Use this user ID as my home channel. And then do I want to restart the gateway to pick up the changes? Yes. Now we can just type in Hermes. You message me on Telegram and maybe write me a poem. And let's see if that works. Okay, preparing send message. It looks like there's no messaging platforms. Okay, well, what happened here? Go to your projects. And here you can look at logs, so you can kind of see what's happening in the background. The error message that it got was failed to parse, permission denied. Because this is in a Docker, there are steps for permission denied issues. That is to set the permissions on this folder. So let's go ahead and also look at the volume mounts. And you can see where that folder is. So I'm going to copy that folder path, open a new terminal, log into my local host, give it this chmod, and then here's the path. You need to restart it. Let's go back here, terminal, connect with it, Hermes. And it says done. So we fixed those permission issues. If I go into my Telegram, Hermanobot, Here's a poem about Hermano, Ode to Hermano. So there you have it. You can talk to it via command line, but you need to go through your CLI and come in through here. There is a dashboard as well that we set up. If I look at my compose file, that dashboard runs port 9119. If I want to be able to go to that, I have to go back here, add a new ingress rule, 9119, and this is 0.0.0.0/0. I add that in. Instead of port 8000, if I go to 9119, here's my Hermes sessions, and here are all the messages that I sent it. Now, this is publicly accessible, and so maybe not a great idea to leave that port open. The one other quick thing that I do want to show you is within Coolify, you can see the services and you can go to the settings here. And if you have your own domain name, you can actually assign the domain name to the ports. That way you don't ever have to open Oracle again, and Coolify will automatically redirect that traffic for you. Okay, there we go. We have Hermes agent up and running. We can talk to it from Telegram. We can ask it to do things for us. Because it's running on a cloud server, you can ask it to run cron jobs, and that way you won't have to have your laptop running, and it can do things in the background for you. And if you ran into any troubles or if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Okay, well, there you have it. If this helped, leave a like and enjoy the rest of your day. See you later. Keep tinkering.